So after the initial, I guess it was a rush to the cloud, there's been a bit of, I won't say pushback, but people have sort of had a bit of a rethink, and companies are sort of maybe pausing or have paused to understand sort of where best to deploy different IT resources, etc. And I guess the cloud first strategies, which was sort of prominent for quite a while, maybe folks have worked out that it's not for them, it's not for everyone. So just I suppose your thoughts as to where we are in this cloud world at the moment.
Um, yeah, I guess my thoughts are that it's certainly the conversation is coming to the front a lot more. I guess my view for a long time has been that probably a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud approach has actually always been the way. But I think what's bringing the conversation back around now is um, there's a kind of data sovereignty reality kind of looming, I think, on people. And if you think about sort of knowing where your data sits, knowing actually, can I be really sure that it's not going to sort of cross a different country, or it's going to go into a different across a different network. How do I know where that data's been stored, where it's been transited, where it's been processed? So I think actually that's for me is what's bringing the kind of the topic back. But we are certainly seeing companies that classed as born in the cloud. They're growing, which is great, but they're also raising their cost base is growing as well. So I think the two things coming together is making people think, hang on a minute, is this the only answer? And the reality is there's great places to kind of use hybrid cloud. Public cloud certainly has its space. There's capabilities there that work really well in the public cloud environment. But if you want that sort of cost assurity, knowing where data is, as I just spoke to, then yeah, certainly things like Pulsant Private Cloud work really well.
Yeah, and you've flagged up, I mean, as you say, people have various concerns. I know sort of security can be one, but you've flagged up a couple, I think network connectivity and data sovereignty. I mean, how big a deal are those becoming, if you like, compared to where they might have been? What's changed, or just people become more savvy, if you like, as to what's going on in the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element of becoming a little bit more savvy, certainly around, as I say, where the data is actually going. I've probably had more conversations over the last couple of years that says, "Oh, can you guarantee my, which route my data will take around the internet?" It's like, it doesn't always work that way. But actually, if you want some sort of assurity, then actually think about how your network looks. So you are starting to have a more of a connectivity discussion in these things now. But I think the other thing that's driving that connectivity piece is actually realization of where all the data sits. So if you're going to make a decision to say, actually, I want to know that my data sits in these two geographies, could even be cities or it could be countries, actually your connectivity between them now, knowing that A, it's private, and actually what the latency is between those things is becoming even more important. So yes, it's great that we can connect to everything over the internet, and it's great that everyone's connected, but sometimes you've got applications that demand low latency. They demand, I say, knowing what route that traffic will take. And I think that's where people are starting to become a little bit more savvy now to think actually it's not just about compute, it's actually about connectivity as well.
And in terms of data sovereignty, I'm always intrigued as to what um, if you like, the regulations, laws demand, whether it's you work in a specific industry or geography, as opposed to what people are told they should do or they think would be nice to do. Is it easy enough for people to work out whether they literally, legally must have their data in a certain place, or it's just a good idea to have it there? Just your thoughts as to how easy or not it is to work out the sort of true data sovereignty picture, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably don't come at this as certainly as a legal expert, but I think organisations should, when they're considering anything, okay, that regulatory legal requirements are key to it. If I talk to the UK, many organisations will be familiar with ISO 27000, 9001 standards, which take into account all of those elements. I think the thing you kind of hear about in the headlines is certainly around the sort of US Cloud Act and the ability to be able to the right to be able to access data that might transit across those US owned organizations. So I think there's certainly pieces there that people should just be aware of, and it doesn't mean that actually you shouldn't do it, right? But actually, I think you do it with your eyes open, and as long as you understand what that means, it's you've done the right thing. I think there was when you look at some of the I guess the hyperscalers, what comes with the hyperscalers is a global network, and I think actually as much as you can say, look, I'd like my workload to sit in a European data center, or I'd like it to sit in the US data center, wherever that's going to be. Actually, they've got a global network that's designed to kind of, I guess, fail over their services, their zones, and transit traffic in the most efficient manner. So I think that's where it starts to become a little bit more, questionable. So I think when you want to kind of look at actually how do I how do I kind of make a decision here that says I know my data is going to stay in the UK? How do I know that it's where that's being processed? I think if you dig a bit deeper and you start to talk to organizations about actually what does their cloud service look like, what does their network look like, is the company a UK based company? Those things are really sensible things to start looking at.
Yeah, and one other thing, I guess, is I mean, we've got this AI explosion, which everyone is more than aware of, shall we say, and then related to what we talked about, cloud. A lot of folks are taking some assets out, data repatriation, I think is the sort of
Hmm.
the official name for it. So removing it from either the cloud entirely or swapping from one cloud to another. So there's a lot of pressure when it comes to data migration. And I think most IT professionals, it's one of the things that possibly keeps them awake at night, the thought of, migrating applications or, whole sort of data centers from A to B. And there doesn't seem to be any sort of, I don't know, standard approach guidance. So what do you think are there things that need to happen to just help people with that, or are you very much left to your own? It's good luck to you when you try it, if you like.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot in there, right? I mean, I think data has that sort of exponential growth of data that we've seen makes these things really difficult. And I think there is standards around kind of how data's stored, how it's used. But I think the real answer to where that comes to is you're going to have to make decisions about actually, have I got a SaaS platform? Am I using multi-cloud? Am I using sort of a Pulsant Private Cloud here? The key to this is the application layer and the API that you integrate with. And there's a danger of kind of thinking that sort of cloud repatriation means you have to put everything into one basket, right? And I don't think that's what it is. It's about making conscious decisions to say, actually, I want to use maybe this. You talked about AI there. I want to be able to access this language model, but I need to be able to do it in a private way that I've got my data sitting in this data center here. So actually, the application layer and those API integrations, they're going to become the key to that sort of will it get us to a standard? I think people get very familiar with how they can talk to, and companies are very good at publishing how to work with their APIs. I think that's probably the answer to either accessing or even moving data around. But yeah, I mean I think to get a kind of complete standard around moving between one another, would be I think quite a task. I think what we need to probably see is or what I'd like to probably see is a bit more of an open standard around where you're migrating between clouds and you're not tied in. We're starting to see some sort of behaviors, certainly around some of the bigger players that actually that sort of vendor lock-in almost, and actually the exit fees and costs of taking data out, and that I think inhibits a little bit of kind of competition and growth in the market. So maybe more around the commercial side of it necessarily than the actual technical standard.
And I guess with this sort of these issues, this background we've discussed, yourselves, Pulsant, you've fairly recently launched the Pulsant Private Cloud. So I guess it'd be good to understand a little bit of the background, the genesis of that, and then maybe we can go on to you can tell us exactly what it is and what it does, if you like. So.
No, sure. That's so. I think as a UK infrastructure provider, I mean, we're not new to the cloud market, but actually, what we were seeing was there was that sort of as we talked to at the top of the call there, that was a sort of move to public cloud, and actually, that's the direction of travel. But like a lot of technologies in our industry, right, there's a hype and then a realization that these things start to decentralize. So we took a decision we're very happy to kind of invest in infrastructure. We said actually that there's a lot going on at the moment. You've got the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. You've got changes going on in that market. You've got this view that actually do I need to centralize my data? Do I know where my data sits? So the opportunity really is to kind of say, actually, we can invest in a enterprise level platform. We know that we've got UK owned facilities and data centers. We know that we've got a UK network. It's a private network. We know where we can give those, I guess, assurances to our clients of actually that. So my theme with that is, where am I going to process my data? Where am I going to store my data? How am I going to transit my data? And we can give those kind of assurances back to our clients. So we invested in a compute platform in 3 regions, in the south, the northeast of England, and in Scotland. And we're very happy to kind of have an enterprise level, I guess, hardware infrastructure there. We do run a VMware hypervisor, and I think actually when you look at the changes that have gone in that market, that's gives some of those VMware customers that maybe have found the pricing changes that Broadcom have brought in a little bit challenging, right? We're a great opportunity there to kind of say, actually, I want to stay with a VMware hypervisor here, but I really can't work with the minimum requirements that are being laid out here. So what we'd say is, yeah, that's where Pulsant Private Cloud is a great place to come in. Equally, if you're maybe you're a smaller cloud provider yourself, and you actually don't want to make those infrastructure investments, which is one of the reasons you might have thought about public cloud. Actually, we're a great place to come for that. So we can provide you with that that hardware infrastructure for you to run your cloud for your clients as well. So it's really an infrastructure as a service play there. But I think a lot of clients do need that assurity around, actually, I know where my virtual machine sits, and I know where my data sits, and yeah, I'd love to kind of continue with VMware, but actually some of the challenges that are there at the moment, I need another option. So Pulsant Private Cloud works really well for that.
In terms, I mean, it's obviously fairly early days, but I'm fairly certain that you were talking to folks before you launched it. So what's been the sort of reaction, the feedback from partners? And also, I don't know, is it available via the channel as well as direct, to just sort of, the ecosystem? How have they responded, if you like?
Yeah, I think the conversations we get into, they've been really positive. I think so we're not kind of I guess we don't look at a sort of channel market, and we're not kind of pushing out in terms of that, but we do have partners. So we have a lot of managed service providers that host in our data centers, and they're probably at that point going, hang on a minute, do I need to refresh my own cloud infrastructure here, or why wouldn't I kind of look towards Pulsant? They know the quality of our data centers. They know they've been using that network and everything for some time, so it's a natural fit. So I think we've seen some really positive conversations there, which is really good. But the other interesting one for me at the moment is just that whilst I know it was probably this time last year that we saw the sort of the Broadcom change, people probably, I think a lot of the service providers reacted initially to that. They had to kind of update their license model, as did we. But what you'll probably start to see now is some of those clients where they've maybe even had still an on-prem or smaller VMware footprint, that I think they're going to have to seriously now look at, do I continue running VMware directly, or do I actually look to a service provider for a cloud environment? And I think we start to see some early signs of good conversation around that. So yeah, I think it's working well. That's probably and I'm focusing in there on the VMware piece, but probably the overarching and the exciting discussion for me actually is around actually this where is the data going? And we've seen a couple of clients that were very heavily invested in a hyperscaler, and they've now come back into that, and they've either done a combination of hosting their own equipment or using some of the Pulsant private cloud infrastructure. So I'm kind of encouraged by actually the fact that we've got a lot of organizations starting to think seriously now about actually where do I want to put my data, and who do I want to kind of leave in control of my data. And again, I think that's where our sort of private cloud offering works really well.
Okay, and I know you've been fairly busy, because I think it was within the previous week, across the desk came the fact that you've also acquired a couple of data centers from SCC, and
Yeah.
I presume that's related to your platformEDGE solution, but you can tell me otherwise or explain the thinking behind the strategy. So please do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, if I kind of maybe just talk very briefly about platformEDGE. So platformEDGE is, if you think about that as three main components, it is our data center co-location business, which is really sort of, I guess, is that sort of regional co-location. So as a country, we're quite dependent on London and the infrastructure around London. But if you think about the requirements to kind of know where your data is stored, I want to be able to kind of not be dependent on some of those, maybe the carrier hotels in London, or even the cost of an IP mile transiting my data up and down the country when I've got a business in a Newcastle or in Edinburgh or something like that. So actually, our regional co-location is really important to be able to kind of give choice in terms of where that where clients host and store their own infrastructure. The second leg is around our infrastructure as a service, which we've kind of talked to here, which is giving people the option, if they don't want to kind of invest in their own infrastructure, we've got that enterprise level capability to run their virtual environment. The third leg for me is probably the most important, is that connectivity. And each of our data centers will have that diverse connectivity out of their site. We know exactly where our network runs across the UK. We've got multiple 100 gig capability to take your data where you need to take that. And if you look at the placement of our existing data centers prior to the work we've just completed with SEC, we've got a really good spread. You know, we're up the East Coast and we come down through Manchester back down the West Coast. And actually, Birmingham has been a site where we've always felt that we needed to kind of be great to kind of get a facility there. And then further into the southeast, we I believe our further south is probably our LM1 site, and actually their Fareham site down towards more towards that south coast gives us a bit further geographic spread. So actually, when you look at the what we'll have across platformEDGE is 14 sites, very close to all of that UK business conurbation, really giving them the option to get that low latency connectivity into a platformEDGE site. And the important bit for me is actually knowing where their data is and how they can transit in a private manner.
Okay, and in terms of Pulsant overall, I mean, this question may not matter, but I'm just intrigued as to how you view yourselves, because you're obviously very busy doing many things. I mean, would you think of yourself as a data center company, a cloud provider, an IT provider, or all of the above? I mean, yeah, where would you
Where do we
position
fit?
yourselves, or are
Yeah.
you unique because you do so much, if you like?
Is it yes to all the above? No, I mean I think yeah, I'd like to think we are unique, okay? Because I think we are the way I would describe ourselves to answer your question is we're a UK edge infrastructure provider, okay? And actually you see data center providers and you see network providers and you maybe see some cloud providers. Actually, we do all three of those things, but we've been very clear over the last sort of 4 to 5 years. Actually, what our position is around providing that infrastructure to sort of UK businesses that need it, whether you're a service provider looking to run a cloud platform and want to host that in our data centers, whether you're looking to be a managed service provider needing to offer some virtual compute to your clients, we can fill that space for you there. So we're not looking to we don't see ourselves as a managed service provider. We see ourselves firmly placed in that sort of UK infrastructure provision. The bit that makes us unique is those hopefully soon to be 14 data centers around the UK in those strategic locations. That gives us that is that regionally national or locally national sort of presence. Actually, you can come and exactly where your data is going to be. If you need access to your equipment, we are there. We've got local teams that are very happy to kind of support you in that way. And yeah, I think that's the part that makes us really unique about this.
It just occurred to me, and you don't have to answer it, but bearing in mind all this going on geopolitically, do you think you might even benefit? Clearly, data sovereignty is an issue anyway, but do you think with all that's going on, do you think you might attract more customers that wish to, sort of shop with UK PLC as opposed to, as you say, one of the hyperscalers that is not sort of homebred, shall we say?
Yeah, I think there's, even it has accelerated even with the news yesterday evening. But I think businesses are already starting to think that way. I think that sort of uh, let's you want to, as a UK business, you want to kind of make sure you're in control. And as I say, I don't think risk is anything new that anyone's really kind of looked at here, but it has put a new lens on how we think about these things. And would you want to kind of have that risk of something happening around you? Am I really in control of my prices that's going to happen? So I think that there is something that says actually, storing my data in the UK, knowing that I've got control of that, that cost assurance piece, that ability to kind of know that things are as much as anyone can have sort of, I guess, control over that piece, that you've got that level of assurance, I think is key. The other bit that's we're probably going to start to see is actually been fantastic to watch kind of the generative AI elements kind of grow. And as I mentioned earlier, we in our industry we have these hype cycles, and it's great to see that development going on. But actually, the real power of that is when you start to bring that back into your own private data and start to use that. And again, you want to be in control of that. You don't want to be passing your data off to some unknown. How can you have that surety that it's going to stay private and actually remain yours? So I think you'd have naturally seen people kind of think about that and go, right, great, I'm going to take that language model now and I'm going to actually get, access that in my private data with secure connectivity. So I think actually the timing works really well, and I think we're starting to see that sort of realization come as people look for those real use cases for where they can sort of make good use of artificial intelligence, actually sort of improve efficiencies and drive real things in their business. And yeah, it's quite an exciting time, I think.
Yeah, and to that point, maybe just to finish with, in terms of, I say you've been busy recently, so it's maybe a bit harsh for me to expect you to tell me loads of other things you've got down the pipeline. But how busy are you planning to be for the rest of the year? Any plans you can share, or just a general direction of travel? Would be good to understand.
I mean, I think that sort of our, as I said, the business has kind of gone through a real strong focus over the last 4 years to actually deliver great infrastructure, great service to our clients in that sort of co-location space, connectivity and infrastructure space. Clearly, that's an ongoing piece of work that has to happen. We're really excited by the news that came out last week for the acquisition of the two new data centers that will hopefully complete in the next month or so. So that's actually really probably going to get our focus for the next 3 to 6 months as we kind of bring our platform edge to those sites. Certainly keep me and my team busy as we do that.